In previous tutorials, I've shown you how to create a drawing file in Inventor and to create your own imperial border to be used on all of your drawings. And then I've also shown you how to do your dimension style setup so that when you do your dimensioning, it will come out as fractional units rather than as decimal units, meaning here this is 11 3/4 inches rather than 11.75. Now, what I do want to show you in this tutorial is how to go about creating the actual detailed drawings. So this one is Clevis Ortho. So I'm going to recreate this drawing. So I'm just going to go ahead and restart this drawing by deleting the views. And we'll start it all over from scratch. So I'm going to go to Place Views, go to Base, and I'm going to select the part file that I'm looking for, or depending on what style of drawing, if you're doing something where you want the assembly, you can accept it, or in this case I'm looking to do a drawing of the clevis, so I'm going to select that part file and say open. I want this not to be a shaded view, I want it to be hidden line, so I'm going to click on that, and I probably want it to be the front view in this case. And I'm going to set my scale. I think I can probably go to something like 1/4 inch. And then if I wanted to do a view identifier, which would maybe we say front view or something like that, then we can click on the pencil and make changes to what it says here. But I'm not going to do that at this stage. If you did want it, then in order to get it to show, you'd have to do the toggle label visibility, and then you would click that on, and then your whatever you have in here would show. So now I'm going to click somewhere on the screen to place my view. And notice that if I move my cursor, it will allow me to create projected views from that base view. So I could put in a right side view, a top view, a bottom view, and all sorts of different views from that one view. So from the base view. So I'm going to put in a right side view. I'm going to click where I want it to go. And if I wanted other views, maybe I would want to put in a top view. Then I could go and put those in as well. So I would click and put that where I want the top view. However, in this case, the top view isn't going to give me any more information than the side view. So remembering that for orthographic drawings, we provide the fewest number of views that will allow us to accurately describe the shape and size of the object. So we need to be able to dimension everything. But once we've got views that will allow us to do that, then I don't need to add additional views. So once I've clicked once to locate this side view, then I right click and say create. And now it creates that view. If I had made a mistake and forgotten to make it a hidden line, then I can click on it. And if I wanted to change it to shaded, I can do that. And they both become shaded and so on. So I also, oops, that one didn't go. I'll just undo until I get back to where I was. Okay, and now I want to put in a projected view because I want to put in a 3D view over here, or an isometric view. I shouldn't really call it 3D. I'm using the same file, so I'm going to, oops, sorry, I don't need to do this. I can go to projected. So I'm going to use projected, and I'm going to click on my base file, or my base view, and now I can go and put in my isometric view. So I'm going to put it maybe somewhere around there. So I click once to locate it, right click to create it. And now I've got that view. I'd rather this view be shaded, so I'm going to go back and make it a shaded view, say OK. And I'm also probably going to need to use a smaller scale. Let's just see, I'm going to move this view over. Notice that when I move this view, the view to the side of it will stay aligned, but I can change the distance between them. So if I move horizontally, I can choose move the distance. If I move vertically, the views need to stay aligned. And that will happen with all the orthographic views projected from the base view. So now I can click on this one and drag it over a bit. I still think this is going to be too big, so I'm going to change this one and change the scale to 3/16. And then I'm going to want it to actually identify what the scale of that view is. I don't need it to put the name of the view, so I'm going to delete that. So I highlighted the view text. Scale, it's going to write in the word scale, and then it's going to figure out the scale based on what I've put over in this window here. And I'm going to want the text to be, I should highlight all of the text here. And I'm going to make it 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch, the same as my text down in here. And then I'm going to say OK. And say OK. Then I need to put the toggle button on for that to show and say OK. Otherwise, this would not have shown if I had not put that toggle button on. And I can move this around to make it look good. And so now that one, it's 3/16. This one is 1/4 inch equals 1 inch. And now that gives me a little bit of room. I can maybe spread out this, this view as well. So now I'm going to do my dimensioning. So I'm going to go up to the Annotate tab. I'm going to click on Dimension. I have already set mine up so that it will default to the correct dimension styles. If not, you could go and edit your layers to make the dimension layer red, and you could select the layer and then also the style out of here, but you would need to keep doing that each time you start the dimension command again. So I've set mine up so that it will work every time. So I'm going to go back to dimension. I'm going to select this line, and I'm going to put in my dimension, then say OK. Oh, actually, my dimension style is not set up. So I'm going to need to go back and change that. I'll do that in just a moment. I'm going to, while I'm at it, do this line. It's not going to allow me to grab that line, so I'm going to click from there to there. And I'm going to line it up with this one so that they look good. I'm not going to have you measure out the distance between the object and the dimension lines, but you do need to make it look professional. Okay, now we've got to go through and do the rest of the dimensioning. So I'm going to click on Dimension. I'm going to select the circle here and put in the diameter. Say OK. And the radius. I need a radius of this one here. Now we'll dimension the radius. And we need a couple of more dimensions. We need a dimension from the top here into there. Bring it out about that far. Say OK. And then we need the overall dimension. So I need from here to here. Say OK. And I think that's everything we need. Oh no, we need a dimension now from the center of the circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a center mark at the center here. And I don't like the way that's left that short there. So I'm just going to I just click on it, grab the grip, and now I can extend that out. And what I want to do now is dimension to the center line. So I'm going to dimension to this here, to the center line, and to this point down in here. Not letting me get it, so I'm just going to escape. Back to the dimension command. From there and down to here, and drag that out, and that gives me my my entire object completely dimensioned. The other thing I'd like to do, I've put in a center mark. I'd like to put in a center line between these two hidden lines because that represents the hole going through. So I'm going to use this one here. It's called center line bisector. It will put a center line between two lines. So I click on the top hidden line and the bottom hidden line, and now it's put in the center line for me. And I'm going to hit escape, and then I'm just going to drag that out just a little bit longer than it is. So I can adjust it if I want by using the grips. And now, sorry, just before I finish off this tutorial, I forgot to go back and change the dimension style for each of my dimensions to be fractional and to make sure that they're on the dimension layer, etc. So if you followed through the tutorial on how to do your styles editor and change that, then yours should already have come out in fractional format. But if not, then what you can do is to click on each of the, I'm going to go back to Annotate tab. I'm going to click on the ones and hold my Shift key. Click on each of the dimensions, I can do this one at a time or all at one time. And now I've got them all selected. So now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to change to the dimension layer, and I'm also going to put these onto the fractional layer, or fractional. I've got something that isn't a dimension selected, so I'm going to escape, and I'm just going to select again. I'll do these two to begin with and put those on fraction, and then escape, and I'm going to select the next ones and put those on fractional, and then I'll escape that and select the next ones and put that onto fractional as well. And now you can see that my dimensions look correct. I've got fractions here rather than decimals, and rather than having this be 12.00, it's just 12. And that's the way I want my dimensions to look. So again, make sure that your dimensions are neat, that they line up where they can. Dimensions that are between that relate to both views should be between the views. So this dimension from here to here is the same as from here to here. So it needs to be placed between the views, not over on this side and not over here. This dimension again is common to both views, so it should be placed between the views, and this dimension is common to both views, so it should be placed between the views, not over here. And we don't repeat dimensions, so I don't put 11 3/4 over on this side or over on this side of the object or redimension it over here. And now I've got a completely dimensioned drawing, and I've got the views that I want, and I've set the scale down here and identified the scale of any other view that is not of the same scale as listed in the title block. My drawing number I'm going to have to change later. Eventually it'll probably be drawing number 3, and in order to make changes, what we can do is click on Imperial A-size border in the Clevis Ortho, right click, and do edit field text, and now I could go ahead and change the drawing number. I'm going to cancel that for now. Now to create a new drawing, I can click in the white area, right click, and say new sheet, and I'll get the information to fill in for the title block, and then it'll create my next drawing. And I'm going to then, then you need to go through and create the pin drawing. You should have your center lines, right? Again, not that keen on this one stopping exactly where it is, so I'm just going to drag it out a little bit longer and drag this one out a little bit longer. Okay, and I would rather this one be up through here a little bit further, and that gives me all of the dimensions that I need. I've identified the length of the pin. I've given the radius. It would be nicer to say the diameter, but it wants to give you the radius instead because of this notch out here. I've given the width of the notch by 3/4 inch deep. DP means deep. So once you put in this dimension, that puts in the 5/8. Then you need to put in, just type this in, X 3/4 inch DP, and that'll again stand for deep. And the reason we put that in there is that tells you how far in this notch goes, because we don't dimension to hidden lines. So otherwise I would dimension right here as being 3/4 inch, but again we don't dimension to hidden lines, so this gives somebody that same information. It's 5/8 inch wide by 3/4 inch deep. I don't need to know the height, but I do need to know the location from the center, and so it's 1 1/8 inch up from the center. I know it just goes up beyond the top here. So that would be the pin, and then you need to do the lever drawing, and again you would put in your hidden lines and your center marks and all the dimensions necessary, and the key drawing as well. So I would prefer the titles to say detail dash key, detail dash lever, detail dash pin, and detail dash clevis. But I'm just going to leave these ones for now to keep the tutorial shorter. And your job now is to go through and create all of the part or the detail drawings. So again, the drawings of the details are called detail drawings. You'll in the next tutorial, you'll do an assembly drawing and also a cover sheet drawing.